3, 2.
Welcome back to 755 is Real. I'm David O'Brien, Braves writer for The Athletic, with my co-host, Eric O'Flaherty. And we got a really special guest today, Eric.
Yeah.
We are honored to have award-winning actor and super Braves fan, a fan of all sports of Atlanta, but I know I've known him for years as a Braves fan, Michael Kelly. Michael, welcome to the little podcast here.
Thank you, man. Thank you. It's an honor to be here too.
Our operation's not as slick as what you're used to in TV and the big screen, but we try to get by here.
I don't know, man. It's pretty tight. I got to tell you, man. I'm impressed with it.
So let's get started by you telling us where you were when the Braves won this thing, because I know you have waited years and years and went through all the years of rebuilding. I mean, you were a big Braves fan growing up. I should tell people, Michael grew up in Lawrenceville, right here in suburban Atlanta, went to Brookwood High, which is the rival of Frenchie, Jeff Francoeur's Parkview High. So he went through the trials and tribulations and also grew up with the 90s teams, right? That was when you were just getting old enough to know baseball?
Yeah. You know, and that was fun, but nothing like this was because,
right.
You know, in the last 8-10 years, I've become really invested in the Braves, like knowing the minor league system, like just really following kids on their way up, making the team. And now you get to see what's happening with those kids that you were following, you know, almost a decade ago. And it's just that's the best part. And then I have a 9-year-old boy who plays baseball and a 12-year-old girl, and they're both diehard Braves fans, which is really cool too, even though they've only lived in New York. But I was actually in the other room right here. I flew with, all four of us flew down for game 4, but only my brother, my son and I went with my dad and my brother, and my dad and my brother and I text every single game. Like if I'm in Budapest working, like they're giving me updates, you know, like it's really cool. So we got to go 3 generations of just
that's cool.
diehard Braves fans sitting there for game. What I thought was the most epic game of the series.
I was going to say, you got to see game 4, the win, and that place was insane, wasn't it?
That come from behind win was just seeing my son, like that was everything, man. But
Solar,
then we came back. And then we came back here back to New York, and we were watching it. My daughter went to bed and my son stayed up, and he nodded out around the 8th because he's young.
Yeah.
He was fighting it so hard, but I woke him up for the whole night. I was like, buddy, wake up. This is looking good, man. Any Atlanta fan, I'm like, not over yet, but
you got to wake them up. You don't want to miss this
again. This might be it could be 20 years before you get that chance to watch it again.
That's got to be tough, man, for when you have kids that are under 10 years old and these games start so late and they go almost 4 hours. A lot of them go over 4 hours with all the relief pitching and all the pitching changes. So you're ending after midnight a lot of nights.
Yeah. So my wife stayed up with us, and right with 2 outs, I FaceTimed my dad and my brother, and we're like, all just like, oh my God. Everybody just jumping up and down, going crazy in the house, and they were freaking out. It was, my son will never forget that. He'll never forget going to the game. He'll never forget that. I'll never forget it.
How cool is that, being a hardcore Braves fan through the whole and sticking with them through the whole rebuild and all that, and then living in New York and having to hear, I'm sure, all the shit about the Yankees all the time and all that. And now your team is the world champions. You walk around with that hat on, and people like, respect, man.
Feels good, dude. We did it. Like it.
And you're not on the bandwagon. You're like, this not a new hat.
That's the cool thing. That's the cool thing.
Yep.
Well, all they have to do is go back and watch. Was it Criminal Intent? Which one of the shows was it where you wore a Braves cap in like every episode?
It was Criminal Mind. What's it called? It was called Criminal.
You've been in so many of those shows, you forget the exact name.
Well, it wasn't Law and Order. It was the one that the one I was telling you about before, Eric. It was a spinoff before.
I think you said Criminal Minds.
Yeah,
Criminal Minds. And I had said, I want to make my guy like into baseball, and I said I really want to wear a Braves hat, and they were like, nah, man, Major League Baseball is never going to clear it. There's no
Yeah.
way. And I was like, go to the Braves. They might clear it because they know me. And they're like, they're never going to clear it. And they never got back to me. So I just wore it. And and we never got sued. So that was cool.
Yeah, I didn't even know you would have to do that to clear it, just to wear it in a movie or on a show. But I guess they have to clear everything, huh?
Yeah,
Wow.
you remember that whole story with Ben Affleck, who's a diehard Red Sox fan.
Right. That's right. He had to wear a Yankees cap for that,
Wear
right?
a Yankees cap, and he was like, "No, not doing it."
In one of those movies, yeah.
That's cool.
Like, absolutely not.
Well, I'm sure once they saw you wearing it, they're like, "Well, yeah, why would we care? This is great pub."
Yeah.
But didn't you wear it like at least at some point in every episode you wore the cap?
Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
I tried to get in everyone. Yeah.
Well, so when did you believe this year that, I mean, because we talked about it all year, you know, when this team was under 500 or right at 500, but we always knew that the talent was there to be not just good, but to make a run in the playoffs with I always said because they had Charlie Morton, Freed, and Ian Anderson. Right. And at the time, Noah for a while was their best pitcher. So you thought they're going to have 3-4 starting pitchers. They can go deep.
Yeah.
But we had a hard time convincing people of that when they're sticking under 500, and especially after they lost Acuna. When did you really believe, though, in this team that that they could do some damage in the postseason?
I think it was when they went on that winning streak. What was it, like eight in a row or something?
9. They had a 9-0 road trip, 9-0, and a 16-2 run.
And then they faced. Then they came off of that and had to face the Yankees, but they played some good ball against the Yankees, and the Yankees are the Yankees. Any given day, any team's going to win. And I was like, you could have won though, and I was like, that's when I was like, shit, these guys might just have it. Like, you know, that run made me feel a lot better because that was tough. Like, I'll admit, just prior to when Acuna went down, I was like, at the trade deadline, I was like, man, I think, you know, you get a lot from Morton right now. Somebody's really going to want him. I was kind of like, I was leaning towards, you know what, we'll destroy next year if you cash in a couple chips right now. I'm glad I was not on the board.
You were not alone.
You weren't alone in that.
In urging them to sell. I knew they weren't going to sell because of the business. And this is a bottom line team with Liberty Media. And it didn't make any business sense because they were drawing so well. They had the second highest attendance. Yeah. So they couldn't just wave a white flag in July when they were drawing like that. So I didn't think they were going to, I thought when they lost to Acuna, it was over as far as their playoff chances, you know. Thought they can maybe win the division because nobody else is running away with it, but they're going to get beaten in the first round. Right. But I knew they weren't going to sell. I knew Alex was not going to wave the white flag and sell. So, but when he made that Jock Peterson trade, we're kind of like, you know, okay, they're at least fun now. They got a guy that's been to postseason. That's cool. Who knows? Nobody's running away with this thing. And once you get into postseason, anything could happen. But I still didn't believe in them, you know, as far as having a good chance. But when they were, like you said, when they went on that run, though, and they kind of took charge of the division because the division was just so mediocre. You thought, well, if they can get in the postseason and get everybody healthy, get Noah back, get Ian back, then with starting pitching they have, they got a chance. That was even before Soler came back. Yeah. Right? Oh, I wasn't expecting anything at the trade deadline. When they got Soler and Rosario, I thought Duvall could come in and help them a lot, but the other two guys, I'm like, so what? You know, Rosario's hurt. He didn't do anything in Cleveland, and Soler's hitting under 200. So I wasn't expecting much from that. Yeah. It's they surpassed all expectations. I mean, those you want to see him hold on to at least one of those guys, Rosario or Soler. It'd be nice. Soler would be a great fit with the DH. He'd be a great fit. I think Rosario might have got himself
out of Atlanta with that.
Maybe a 3-year, $24, $25, $28 million contract. I don't know if they'll do like a 3-year deal, which he might be able to get. But Soler makes so much sense with the DH coming, man. Yeah. Because he's a great fit in the clubhouse. I mean, that was kind of cool too, right? Watching the World Series, being like, this is probably it. This is probably the last time like that we'll see pitchers have to do that. You know? Yeah, Max Fried might be the last pitcher to win a Silver Slugger award. he might actually hit again, though. Like, there's a good chance he could hit again. As a pinch hitter, there's no doubt he'll be used at some point. Totally. Yeah.
I love that he won that. My son this morning is like, "Oh my God, Free won the Silver Slugger!" I was like, "That's awesome."
Now, so your kids are into it.
Oh
That's
yeah,
cool that you got kids that are that. Yeah. And now,
Yeah,
and now
he
that do they wear Brave shit? Are they Braves fans in New York?
every day. He
Oh,
wears
you raised them right,
every-
man. That's cool.
like
That's
he-
cool. They didn't succumb to peer pressure in New York.
No, man, he's dire. If he doesn't stay up and watch the game, first thing he does every morning is watch the 9-minute condensed game, like every day. And then he'll
Really?
sit there after school and he'll do probably like 8 more condensed games. He'll take it.
Uh-huh.
He's crazy. He takes stacks of his baseball cards and he makes 2 teams and he'll
No
lay them
way.
both on the coffee table and then he picks one up and he's standing there and he does every player's stance and in his head
Oh,
he
that's
plays the
awesome.
full game and he runs across the house and he slides and he
That's awesome.
Okay,
No.
time out. How did you get him into it?
Eric's kid doesn't even play.
My kid won't even. I mean, they watch 30 seconds, then they're like, "This is," they want to run around outside.
I'll tell you, my funny enough, my wife I was a runner. She's a real athlete. She played softball. She's a badass, and she's a yoga instructor and a personal trainer. And she taught him how to throw. And he's for a 9-year-old. I was last week. I was at his flag football practice, and one of the coaches was like, I've seen a 9-year-old who can throw fast, but I've never seen a 9-year-old who throws from the exact same spot perfect delivery every single time.
Repeats his delivery. Wow.
It's so cool. It's like,
You're
I'm just
lucky.
like, yes!
You're lucky. That's cool.
Good.
So I think the
And
key is to raise them in. You raise them in Manhattan. They're in Manhattan.
Manhattan, yeah.
So they can't go out. His kids are in Washington State, so they can go out and run around. Your kids can't go out and run around.
No, now they can. Look at this, man.
Oh, look at that.
Oh,
I'm picturing a condo, a tower, and you show.
We just moved.
Where are
up
you?
To Bedford, New York, which is like an hour north.
Ah, I got you.
3 acres. That's the backyard.
Nice.
The front yard is a full-on baseball field. Like it's big as hell. It's
Nice.
God, dang.
And he wants
That's
to throw
cool.
every day before school. He's like, "You want to throw?" Every day after school. "You want to throw?" Yeah.
And you do it
Every day.
every day. Oh, that's
Every
cool.
day he asks, I do it. Anytime he asks. And we never have to push him because he literally lives for it. Like it's crazy.
What age did that start?
As soon as he started the game, so I guess like 2 years ago, 2.5 years
Okay,
ago.
so,
Like,
so we got hope over here. Okay.
yeah. And it was just
Mine's
him
6.
doing it. How old are yours?
6 and 3.
Yeah. So
They're kind of
heck yeah.
just like whatever with baseball right now. But my 6-year-old has a cannon, but he'll play catch for 2 minutes, and then he's like, "Let's do something else." Or I'll put a ball in a tee. He'll just walk up, crush it across the street to the neighbor's house, and then walk away. And I'm like, man, if I could ever get you into this, you got a shot, buddy. But he's got so many other things he wants to do.
No, you will. He will. Like that's especially if he's good, right? Like if I feel like when a kid has a talent, they are more inclined to
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
to fall into it. So
Yeah. So, hey, Michael, so you were born in Philly, but you moved to Lawrenceville real early?
Well, I moved to close to there, and then we moved for like when I was 1, we moved to Georgia.
Yeah.
Then
Okay.
we moved to Texas, and then the summer before my 5th grade year, we moved to Lawrenceville. My folks are still in the same house that I grew up in.
Really? So they live near the Coolray Field.
Yeah, they're not far at all. They're like right where Lilburn, Snellville, and Lawrenceville all meet. So
Right.
like that cluster right there.
Terry Pendleton lives right up there.
Does he?
Oh yeah. Yeah. He lives right down the street from Brookwood High School. Not far at all.
Oh, that's literally I could, you could walk there. It's probably like a mile and a half.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
TP probably doesn't want me telling people where he lives, but it's a gated community. You can't get to his house.
Coming to find you.
He used to Terry when he was on the coaching staff. Terry rides Harleys, and I rode with him a lot of times. But he was so cool. He had this huge trailer. So every year at spring training, his buddies also rode. So like 3 of his buddies would go down to spring training at the beginning before they really got heavily into workouts. and they'd go down for like a week with him. They'd take the trailer with like 6 bikes in it. And Terry would take my motorcycle down for me to spring training every year. And I'd just go pick it up at his rental house, and I'd have my bike for all spring training in Florida. It was awesome. So when Terry left the coaching staff, I was like, fuck, man, he ain't going to go to spring training anymore. I know, and it can't get it down there otherwise. So, I mean, that was one of the highlights of spring training for him. It would be able to ride to, so it was, but anyway, TP's a great dude.
Yeah.
Great dude.
Yeah, he is.
He sure seems like
he's still in the organization, still working with the kids. So
what do you think? What do you think the odds are of Washington sticking around?
I think it's good.
Good.
I think Oakland is the only place that might hire him, but I think Mark Kotze, I think, is a real good big candidate there. I also heard Walt Weiss's name mentioned along with Wash's for that job, but I think Kotze, they know him. He's been on their staff.
Yeah,
played there. You know, he's on their staff. Easy transition. You know, he's because he's been a third base coach there.
Man, I don't want to lose any of that. That staff is Eric, like that. They're
perfect. We've talked about them. Eric and I've talked about them.
I don't lose anybody.
Walt and Wash. Everybody talks about Wash because he's so visible. You know, as third base coach and doing his infield drills and all. But Walt Weiss has been a huge asset for Snit as a bench coach. You know, as a guy who's played, as a guy who's managed. And helps Snit a lot. Snit delegates so much and relies on those guys so much. So
you see
either one of them would be a big loss.
Yeah,
Wash would be huge.
I hope not for the kids too. Like seeing Washington and, like you said, those drills and stuff. Like I do feel like that.
Oh yeah,
goes far, and it. Yeah. That's not just here. You're learning better mechanics with me. You're going over your mechanics and getting better. That is like the familia aspect of it, that community thing that just makes those guys just tighter and that bond stronger.
Yeah, that infield between Wash's tutelage and Freddie's example. Now you've got all 4 of those guys playing every day. You don't see that on any other team. They don't take days off. They play 160 games unless they're hurt.
And to the greatest level, like they are playing. That infield's unbelievable. Man.
Yeah, 3 of them won Silver Slugger awards, and Dansby hit 27 home runs, and he didn't win one because you got Trey Turner and Tatis and Sager at his position. So, but it was an unbelievable infield.
Yeah,
and defensively, they're as good as any in the majors. You know?
That's so much fun to watch. And as one of these young pitchers, Ian Anderson and Max Fried, those guys coming, just to know that's behind you, how much more. And Eric, you could attest to this, how much more confidence that must give you as a pitcher to be like, that's all right, hit it. Go ahead.
Well, I had Simba at shortstop, Andrelton Simmons. So it was I just need them to hit it anywhere on the left side and it's an out. You know? I mean, it definitely gives you confidence to just chuck it in there and let your defense work when you got a squad like that behind you.
Yeah. Yeah, that was fun to watch him too, man. He was Anderson years. What did we get for him? We didn't get a lot for him, did we?
Andrelton?
It was a trade.
No, it was a terrible trade. It was the worst trade copy made, probably.
Wow.
Yeah. He traded him to the Angels. They got the infielder. That copy said, we're not really going to lose that much defensively.
Oh, Ibar.
Eric Ibar, who's most famous for getting a chicken bone stuck in his throat during his Atlanta. That's what he's most famous for during his Atlanta tenure. It's getting having to be taken to the hospital with a chicken bone jammed in his throat.
Andrelton Simmons. I mean,
the best defensive shortstop of a generation for Eric Ibar.
Wow.
And a pitcher who never did anything for the Braves.
But I feel like you got a lot of teams now.
They got Nuke in that one though, didn't they? Yeah, they got Nuke. And the other guy. 2 pitchers. Still, that was the worst trade he ever made because Simba still was the best shortstop in baseball for another 5-6 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He finally didn't win a Gold Glove this year. Probably should have, but he was hurt. So
insane.
Yeah. But on the other hand, they wouldn't have pursued Dansby if they'd have kept Simba, and Dansby's turned out to be a shortstop. So yeah, things work out. At the time, I just thought, you got to be kidding me. You're trading Andrelton Simmons.
Yeah.
Because he had just started to hit some too, when he traded him.
And you think like, okay, well, at least if you trade away something like that, you're gonna get a haul.
Yeah.
It's not the same anymore. I mean, prospects are when I was coming up and early in my career, prospects were just like, maybe they work out, but now prospects are like the golden currency.
Draft
saw,
picks
like,
and prospects.
Draft picks, prospects. They saw the Teixeira deal. We made a deal. We traded Adam Jones and 4 other good players for Eric Bedard. And Adam Jones went on to have this amazing career. But there's been so many trades like that where teams have kind of gotten burnt. I think a lot of GMs are really afraid to give up those premium prospects now. And I'm polar opposite. I'm like, man, give me a big leaguer, because you see so many prospects come up and struggle. But it's totally different now.
Yeah, you don't see many trades like the Dodgers did this year to get Scherzer and Trey Turner. You just don't see many give up multiple top prospects. And it's usually the teams that can afford to replace them with free agents.
Yeah.
Right.
The teams with the big payrolls will trade all their prospects because they can fill those holes with money.
That's where I feel you got to give Anthopoulos so much credit.
Oh, my God. He hasn't traded a top prospect yet. He still hasn't traded a top prospect.
Yeah.
It's insane. And
It's insane.
I don't know
how he's done it. We keep saying, I've been saying that for 3 years. He's got to eventually trade one. He has still not. The closest he's done was the lefty that he traded to the Rangers. He really was the lefty from California. I've already forgot his name. What was his name? The little lefty. Curveball.
Starts with an A.
Yeah. I can't even think. We can't even think of that. We'll edit this out. We'll edit this out.
Who was it trade for?
I don't know. Allard, was it Allard?
Yeah. Kobe Allard. Yeah. But that one, and Bryce Bryce Wilson was, he wasn't really a prospect anymore. They traded him this year to Philly. It's usually guys that were prospects and are on the downside, or fringe prospects, but he hasn't traded like a legit top 15 prospect on his way up. Not one.
And people always want him to. People were talking about trading Riley earlier this year.
I know.
Oh my God. Can you believe it? Yeah. Yeah.
And then go see him do this for another team. You just be like,
oh my God.
Nobody wants to feel that.
Oh my God. And that's why you don't do it, because you might lose. A couple of guys might lose their value, and you go, oh, you really screwed up not trading Kyle Wright when you could have, or not trading Pache when you could have. But then with Riley, what if you'd have traded him? He goes somewhere else. This is a guy that, if he has seasons like he did this year, he's going to be a perennial all-star.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he's going to get MVP votes.
Candidate.
He's going to be a top 10 MVP guy this year.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, at 24. So, yeah, but I think
wondering,
we're going to see it this offseason. I don't think he's between Pache, Drew Waters, Contreras, because you got Langoliers, Contreras. You're going to trade at least one of those guys, I think, this offseason.
Wow. The hardest
I wanted to ask.
Go ahead, Eric.
Oh, I wanted to ask you, because we talk about prospects on here all the time, but just to kind of, are you ever around people that can just act their ass off, but when the bright lights come on, and I was going to
bring that up too.
I want to know this.
I wanted to compare stage fright, what we've talked about, performance anxiety, to the guys who are really good in AAA and come up and are never quite as good when they get to the big leagues, or aren't clutch hitters, or can't pitch in the bright on the postseason stage.
When it's rolling, can you go?
I've certainly seen people that I know that are really good actors, because you've seen their work before. And this happened especially with House of Cards, because it was a very quiet set. I mean, we had a lot of fun when they said cut and all that kind of, but it was David Fincher really laid it out. Like, this was just like, you went to work and you worked.
Yeah.
And we had fun when there was time to have fun, but it was really like, you showed up with your A game. You did not know your lines. You went to work and you worked hard. And it was a very intimidating set to walk onto. And most of the time we had actors who would come from Broadway, and they would shoot. They could only do Mondays. They would film all day Monday, and they'd get their stuff done, and then they'd go back to their show. But sometimes you would get younger people, or you would even get experienced people who were, they're good actors. They're not getting a job on House of Cards unless you were good. But they would get there, and it would just be like, oh shit, this is really, this is intimidating. A good example was my friend Jeremy, who played that FBI agent, who ended up being all the way through to the very end with me. We had all that stuff together. And when he first came, and I tell this story, I'm not talking shop behind his back. I've said this publicly before, but he came and he was just like, it was a walk and talk. You have to walk those long hallways, and you got full camera crew pulling you down the hallway, and he was having a tough time just getting the words out, let alone acting. And I was like, and on one of our walk backs, I could see he was having a hard time. And I was like, hey, buddy, man, I'm here for you. And just say the words. These are the coolest fucking people you're ever going to meet. They're the nicest people you're ever going to meet. Don't be intimidated. Just say the words, walk and talk to me. That's all you got to do. And he did it. And he just nailed it. And I was like, yeah, there you go. That's the guy that I know that we hired. And then he ended up being in season after season after season as a recurring role. But you see it, man. God knows, one of the early episodes of The Sopranos that I did.
Yeah.
I will never, ever forget this. I might have told you this story, Eric. Dave, I might have told you the story, but I don't remember. But I went on, and my manager was like, I think we were done guest starring on shows at that point. And he said, I think it's The Sopranos, man. I think you should go in for it. So I went in. I get the job. He said it might be a recurring, but they always tell you that. They're like, it's one episode, but it might recur. So that's how they always go in. Right. And so I go in, and I'll never forget this. It was me and Gandolfini, my FBI partner, and Christopher, the character, Michael Imperioli.
Yeah.
4 of us sitting at a table. They are talking at the red checker tablecloths, right? And they're talking this whole scene. They talk for 2 freaking minutes. And Michael Imperioli's character turns to me. He's like, so what do you do? And I was like, and I just deadpan have to say, actually, a little more of our time trying to interdict the financial networks to fund the terror cells worldwide. I couldn't, for the life of me, get that line out. I'll never forget it now. But for the life of me, I was just like, oh my God, it's The Sopranos.
Yes, thank you.
And I've done it. And and the script supervisor, after like take 10, they're like, now they're just doing my covers. They've got all their stuff 10 times to Sunday. They're like, just doing mine. And I'm spitting it out. I don't get it right. And the script supervisor comes over and she's like, do you want me to just write it down and put it right on the plate in front of you? And I was like, no, I got it.
Don't humiliate me.
I look up again, and she walks over and hands me the piece of paper and sets it down. She's like, camera can't see below here. And she said it in front of me. I never looked at it, and I said it perfect without it. It's just like, it was just a mental thing. I was like, and Gandolfini was so like one of the kindest men I've ever worked with. He's like, this is, dude, you're great. This is Sopranos. We got all the money in the world. We will sit here all day.
That's cool.
That's awesome. I heard he was a great guy.
So kind and generous, man. I remember when I wrapped that show, I ended up doing the last 2 seasons. I think I did 6 or 7 episodes of it. And they emailed me, were like, what's your address? Gandolfini wants to send a little something to everybody for a wrap gift. And I was like, oh, sure. And I gave him my address, and I get this watch in the mail. And I was like, holy shit. I mean, it's a beautiful cobalt diving watch. And I flipped it over, and it said Sopranos, and it had the years, and it said RIP JG. And I was like, you figure if I got one,
everybody,
hundreds of people got it if I got it. And then I found out later that he gave them to the entire crew. Every single person that worked on Sopranos got one of those watches.
Wow. Damn.
So cool.
What was the movie he did? The last movie he did? I just finally saw it like a few months ago. It was a small movie, but it was really good. It was like he was a broken down, ran an amusement park. On the shore in Jersey in the winter. It was a good movie, man. Yeah. He was such a good actor.
The thought of not seeing that guy on screen again is just so sad, you know.
What were you just shocked when you heard that he had died?
Yes and no. I mean, you know, he wasn't a picture of health by any means.
Yeah, big dude. But he's only like 50 some, right? 52 or something.
Yeah, I mean, I was certainly taken aback by it, just because he was such a good dude. But he had a good time, man. He lived a really very fulfilled.
He's a big dude, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's a big dude. He loved his food. He loved his party. He loved his drink. And you know, yeah, I'm sure it's more than that. He probably had a heart problem is on top
Right,
of it. All
right,
that stuff, I'm sure didn't
right.
help.
He didn't get cheated.
No, he was in Italy. He was doing exactly what he wanted to be doing.
That's cool. That's a way to do it.
And that
Yep.
show will live forever, man.
Forever, man. Like that was classic. First early, like, wow, you gotta
Yep.
see this kind of
That to me, that and The Wire are the two that stand out above all. That like just
Yep.
nothing's matched them since.
totally.
As far as long running and acting, directing, the writing, it's just
Yep.
man.
It never failed the whole show, the whole
No.
run. Right?
No.
Tough
What?
to do.
Hey, did you ever talk to little Steven on that while you were filming?
I talked to him, but just, hey, what's going
Yeah,
on? You know,
right.
like I didn't get to pick his brain or anything. He's very much like that.
Yeah. That's his
Yeah.
persona, isn't it? Whether
I
he's
mean-
playing guitar, acting, he's the same guy.
You know who was exactly the same guy though was freaking what's his name who plays Paulie Walnuts.
Oh yeah, Polly Walnuts. He's great.
So that dude shows up. This is my first day. This is so funny. You know, he always wore the tracksuit and the white
Yeah.
sleeves.
Yeah.
So he gets out of his car, doing the whole acting exactly like you see him on television. And he goes into his trailer, and I was like, "Oh my God, that is awesome!" His costume is so great. I say to my FBI partner, and he's like, "Dude, watch this." We're hanging out outside. 5 minutes later, dude comes bouncing out in a different tracksuit and white t-shirt. So he came to
He
work.
wore that.
It was just a different color.
He wears the Adidas tracksuit all the time, man. That's badass.
So
No, did you
funny.
see the
Like,
prequel? The prequel movie was pretty good. His character was great. It's pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty cool to see all those guys really young and how they developed. I thought they did a pretty good job. I was like, prequel to The Sopranos, but they did a pretty good job with it.
And that's his son, right? Who played him.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of like Ice Cube's son playing him
Yep, like
in the
Cube.
movie. And he looks just like him, man.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a show now on I think it's Hulu. It's pretty good called Swagger. And what it is Kevin Durant produced it, and it's supposed to be KD coming up in the AAU type those teams, you know, with the payments and all that. And Ice Cube's son plays a coach. It's like on the take and all this stuff in that. And he looks now he's a little older. He looks exactly like Ice Cube did
He looks
20 years
just
ago.
like him.
Yeah.
Wow.
The show's pretty
That's
good
cool,
called
man.
Swagger. Yeah, basketball. They got like legit players playing the parts of the characters.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I like to see that.
Oh, you went to Coastal Carolina, right? Tommy Lostella's school?
I did. I went to Coastal Carolina. That's where I fell in acting, man. I went there on a cross country scholarship. One of the
Yeah, I didn't know that you went there on a scholarship. I ran cross country in high school too. I didn't know
like
you
one of
went
the
there.
few regional schools. You know, I probably had like 5 or 6 offers to basically give me in-state tuition plus some off or something. It wasn't like some full ride or anything, but I was
right.
It was the only way I could really go to college and not take out a massive loan. So I did it. And I was on the team until I got a theater scholarship. I just fell in acting, and then I ended up getting a scholarship, and I quit running the second.
No shit. I wouldn't have thought Coastal Carolina would have the great acting program. But people say the same thing about Kansas, though. When I tell them some of the people that went to KU, they're like, they got acting there? Yeah.
Yeah. I was the first person to graduate from Coastal with a performing arts degree. Literally first person to get the degree. They finished it for me in my 5th year. They finished designing the program so that I could graduate with it. Crazy.
And that's right. What, in Conway, right next to Myrtle Beach?
Yeah. Yep. Your first year as an athlete, you had to live on campus, 12 miles inland, and then years 2 through 5, summers included, I was at the beach.
I was gonna say,
Myrtle Beach is
like,
amazing.
The best.
That's like, what's that like going to college at a place where everybody goes to spring break?
Spring break, it's like a constant spring break. It's just, it was tough to, most of us were disciplined enough to make it that was our summer, like you wait tables and then you go out after that and you're out all night. You go surfing in the day and then you just start it all over again for the summer. And then when school comes around, theater keeps you really running, obviously, all those miles. That kept me disciplined, but then theater kept me just as disciplined as the running did. Because you got to work so damn hard. Like memorize.
Yeah.
By the way, if you, I had to, because I mentioned KU and I didn't want somebody to think, yeah, right, KU acting. I'm serious. Mandy Patinkin went to KU.
No kidding.
Paul Rudd went to KU.
Second.
Don Johnson went to KU. How about that? Don Johnson went to Kansas, man.
I'm a firm believer of like, either you can do it or you can't.
Right.
Like,
It doesn't matter where you go to school. Yeah. If you could do it or you can't.
I have a lot of actor friends who completely disagree with me. And I do believe there is a different thing with the English, what they're doing in the UK and their education is a little bit different. But for most actors in the US, I got friends who went to Juilliard and I have friends who went to Coastal Carolina. And it's,
That's
Either
where
you got it or you don't.
That's the same thing, I'm sure, in sports, because we see guys from Jacob Webb went to Tabor College in Kansas. I mean, if you could do it, you could do it. But like writing, there's some great journalism schools, right? I mean, they're like head and shoulders above the others. But you can write or you can't write. I mean, they can help you with the little stuff. Mostly they know you can help you get a job because it's connections. Right. But as far as being able to do it, no, they can't teach you to do it. I mean, one of the best writers I knew down at the Sun Sentinel studied at Tufts, and Russian studies was his major. Russian studies, never did a journalism class. So, I mean, but so when did you start? When you first had your first big role, was it in movies or in TV? Which was your first like kind of big role?
The first one that paid me money, like that I made a good living on, was a TV show called Level 9. It was on UPN, which is a network no longer exists. But and I shot the pilot and we got picked up and I did one full season of it. And then that was it. I made a nice chunk of money for a dude who I wasn't even 30 yet. But I was late 20s. Like, I mean, I moved to New York right out of college and I just grinded, man. Bike messengers, waiting tables, did everything. And I would get a commercial, which would give you a nice chunk of money, sort of help you out for the year. And then I'd get another commercial and then I finally got an agent. But I'd say that was sort of the thing that gave me some money and allowed me I could have quit doing odd jobs after that because that's plenty of money to last me until I got my next one. But I didn't know that at the time. So I just went back to working my odd jobs. But that was probably my first big payday, which at the time for a single dude, it was plenty. 2 roommates, like,
you were good.
But then,
you got to want it, don't you? To be an actor, to start out when you're starting out, you got to really believe in yourself to
I tell
put up with all that
kids
shit,
all the time,
waiting tables.
I say it all the time. I'm like, if you don't want it more than anything,
Everybody.
you don't want it more than anything, don't even waste your time because you just get told no over and over and over. And it's the ones who can, you have to be good. And then you got to be able to stick it out. And then you got to get lucky. And then you got to get lucky again. And then you got to get lucky probably like 2 more times before you can have a full-on working career.
Yeah.
I still, every time I'm done with a job, I'm like, shit, is this it? It's always
the fear of failure.
Yeah.
Fear of like, does anybody else want me?
It's tough, man.
I can't even imagine. Like you were the New York version of the LA version of the actor that goes out, tries to thinking you're going to land a job, but it takes years and years. And there's so many failed actors in LA, man.
I mean, it's like an unorganized minor leagues. It sounds like.
Yeah.
No benefits.
None.
Exactly. At least in the minors, it's like, that's sort of the difference. It's like the minors, you either make it to the minors, you get drafted, or you don't, right? Like,
and you have stats, you have stats to show for.
And if you're good, you're going to get promoted.
Yeah.
Right. But with acting, you can be the best player and you might not ever get drafted. You might not ever get a chance to ever do anything because you might have been great, but you never got the lucky break. The one thing that said, who's that guy? That you were in, that they were like, that guy's interesting. If you never get a job to get you the agent, it's all this, you can't get an agent without a job. You can't get a job without an agent. So I feel like that's one of the reasons that acting is so damn hard to do and now it's even harder for kids. Like I feel to try to move to New York City and afford that.
The cost of
like,
living there or LA, Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah.
I guess the only good thing is there's so many places now to act, as far as so many shows on television picked up on whether it's Netflix or Hulu or Prime, and they're scripting so many more shows than they used to.
100%. And also now that I'm in my 50s, there's less cats doing it that are my age. You know, because
you gotta be able to stick that out.
You got to stick it out. And once you get to 50s, you've either done it or you haven't. Like there's no new guys coming in being like, what's this acting thing?
Hot prospect.
Hot prospect at 50.
Hey, I know it's changed over the years, because obviously everybody used to want to be on the big screen, and that was the ultimate, and the best big screen actors wouldn't even think about doing TV, and that's totally changed. Now the greatest actors, you see them on TV as often as you do in the big screen, just about.
Yeah.
But is Broadway still Broadway as far as Broadway? You got to be able to do it. You can't fake it. You can't do 10 takes. You got to be able to.
That's it. You got to, not only you got to do it, you got to be it. You have to. I've done enough theater I've never been on Broadway. It seems like as soon as I sort of had enough cachet that I could do Broadway, not having come up through the Broadway world, as soon as I had enough of that cachet, I just happened to be working enough where I wouldn't be able to go do a show. You know, like House of Cards, that was almost a decade of you know, it was only 6 seasons, I think, but it took the better part of 9 years, I think, to do it.
You were able to skip Broadway.
Well, I want to do it. Like, I can't wait. It's just been finding the right show. Now, once I was able to do it, now it's like, okay, well, we're gonna do it. That is a goal of ours. It's just the right show, the right character. It's a different sport, definitely.
I never understood the allure of Broadway. I'm like, oh, what can be so great about Broadway? You hear about Broadway. And I went to a show finally. This was probably like 15 years ago. I went to a show, and it was a Christopher Walken show. I forget the name of it. And I'm sitting like pretty good seats. I got them at the last minute, just went by myself and sat and watched. And I'm like, holy shit, this is totally different. It was so crazy to see a great actor like Christopher Walken doing this live right in front of you, you know? You can't really, because you're used to, like, you think of plays like when you're in school and stuff. And this is just totally different.
Yeah.
It is ornate theater, you know, it's just beautiful.
And then you see something like Hamilton, and you're just like, you being a music fan that you are. I'm not a big musical guy, but that, when the music is badass, like, you know, I'll sit through Wicked with my daughter, but I want to see Hamilton.
Right.
That is, man, and you feel it in your bones when you see that show. You feel that. You feel them on stage inside of you. It's incredible, man.
So you've worked with some of, I was just looking through a couple of shows I forgot that you were on. Then I was like, yeah, that's right. And you worked with some of my favorite shows and most intense, my favorite actors. And one that stood out was The Shield with Michael Chiklis. God, I love that show when it came out. I'm like, this show is so different than anything on TV.
Yeah.
But that whole cast was amazing.
And good dudes, man. Like that was a fun show to go do. You know,
what a cool show the characters.
It's a good way when you're an up and coming actor and you go do one of those. You get paid when you do it, and then you get paid that whole salary again the next time it airs. And then the next time it airs, you get half your salary, and then it cuts down and dwindles down to.
Wow, I didn't realize you got the full salary when it aired again.
Yep. Yeah. Damn. So that's a great way to make a living. And The Shield, I remember I was in LA for pilot season, and my agent was like, there's this guest star role, you want to go check it out? And this is, you know, anytime you're a guest star, you're creepy, especially on a procedural show like that. You're going to be a creeper who's doing something
right.
My guy did something in an alley by himself. It was really weird.
There was a lot of stuff done in alleys on that show.
Yeah.
You had those characters, Vic Mackey, Shane Vendrell.
Yeah.
Curtis Lemansky and Ronnie Gardocki. I can remember all those characters. That's how good. And I think that's a sign of how good and fleshed out they all were. They were all individual, well-written, really good acting. Those great characters. Some of the turns in that show, you're like, holy shit, did that just happen?
Yeah. And that was, that was regular TV too, right? That was FX.
Yeah, it was like FX. It was like when those were like kind of pushing the envelope. Yeah.
Yeah.
They get away with some cussing and some nudity and drugs.
But FX sort of really paved the way for everything that we see now. Like now we're like, with the streaming services, you can do anything. And I think that going back to what you were saying about the actors coming over from the big screen and the small screen and there's nobody cares. They want to work with the best writers, the best directors.
Yeah.
Like doesn't matter where it is,
Speaking of Shane Vendrell, Walter Goggins, another Atlanta guy.
Yes, he is. Yes.
Another suburban Atlanta guy. And he's a great actor, man.
Yeah, he's done really well with that. He really, I don't know whether, like when I was in college, I had a little bit of a draw, and my professor would always make me repeat myself. Walter's just like, fuck it, I'm gonna just keep talking like this.
Yeah, and he does so many different characters. You're like,
made a great career of it.
Justified. I thought his character on Justified.
Yeah,
that was off the charts, man. That
he's
running
great.
thing.
He's always
Boyd Crowder.
Characters, right? Like he's just, I like him. Big fan of him.
Yeah, I like him too. Do you consider yourself a character actor on in movies, but then you became more of a lead guy in some of the shows? You were a lead actor, weren't you?
Yeah.
Really? I mean,
or
does it even matter? Is there even a distinction?
I don't think it does. You look at what I'm doing on Jack Ryan. And
I love Jack Ryan. Is that coming back?
Like, full on action, and but he's not Jack Ryan, so technically you're considered everything I do is technically considered a character actor because you're not the leading man, pretty much. That baseball movie I did, I don't know if you saw that one, the gambling one that I did. If you guys haven't seen it, it's
what's it called?
It's called All Square. I produced it and starred in it, got all the House of Cards crew to come do it, but basically,
no kidding. Where can I see it?
I was a pitcher and drafted, and then you see him later in life, and he's a gambler. He took over his dad's bookie business, and long story short, he has a one-night stand, meets this kid. The woman's gone in the morning, but this 14-year-old boy's there, and he's like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "Well, you're my mom's friend." And I'm like, anyways, the kid plays Little League, and I go to his Little League game, and no one's paying me all the debts they owe me from gambling, and I'm a bookie, so I just steal from their houses and shit. He's just a shady dude. And he meets this kid. He goes the kid's like, "Will you come to my game?" I'm like, "Whatever, man." I go to his game, and I see a lot of the guys that owe me money, and I'm like, huh. So I start taking action in the Little League games in small town Maryland, and it just all hell breaks loose.
What's it called? All Square?
All Square. I think it's on Hulu.
Sounds like my life trajectory right now.
Hulu? You think it's on Hulu? it's the Eric O'Flaherty story, All Square.
I was just thinking yesterday about putting some slot machines in my house.
You can do part 2, Eric. You could do the sequel to it. Michael direct. You can just play yourself.
It's different when you're done.
Oh, I gotta watch this, man. Hulu.
Yeah,
I'm looking it up. I didn't realize you did a baseball movie, man. I thought only Costner did the baseball movies.
No,
he's done like every one of them.
I'm so pissed about this. Speaking of baseball movies, I read this book. I don't know if y'all read it. One Shot at Forever. It's Snickers high school.
Oh yeah. The story of his high school team.
Great book. Great book.
Yeah.
So I was one day, you know what it was? Snickers' contract was renewed. And I was on Twitter and I was like, oh man, are we so fortunate to have this guy for another?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Whatever. Somebody underneath that from the Braves Twitter world was like, oh my God, if you read One Shot at Forever, it would make the best movie. So I read the book and I was like, holy shit, this is a great movie.
Yep.
So I had my attorney reach out. I was like, I want to get the rights to this book and I want to make it a movie because I had produced All Square and I was like, I want to make this. Go down the whole road, talking with the author, back and forth on emails. and it looks like it was going to happen. And then I think, long story short, I think they used me to get a better offer because they were like, "How much is he going to offer?" And I was like, "Whatever minimal amount I can give is what I'm going to give." Like
Yeah.
5 grand. I don't know. I just let me see if I can do it for a year. I know I can make this movie. But anyways, they sold it to another person.
Yeah, I heard it was getting made though, right?
Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
oh my God, it's so good.
Yeah.
Story's
I love that you're a real Braves fan, you know, appreciating things like the manager, coaching staff. Like you're not just jumping
he's
on
serious,
the,
dude.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
cool.
dude, like
He's been on there since my blog days. That's where I met him.
Oh, really?
Well, blog at the Sunset or Sunset at the AJC.
Yeah, man. I just, no, I can appreciate him, you know, and that's why I talk about Eric Young and Washington and Walt Weiss and those guys. It's like, we were talking, Eric, and that chemistry thing.
That's what I wanted to ask you about.
That's what makes the team, man. Those guys, like all the players, you can be. It's like we're talking about actors. You can be as great as the next actor, but if you don't have a support group around you to encourage that, to, you know, one of the best actors are the actors who are willing to get up there and make a complete ass of yourself, and know that you might fail going for something a little bit further out there. And that's, if you have a support group around you that lets you do that.
Well, it's teammates too, you know, like what you were talking about, walking down the hallway with your buddies trying to do that shot, walking down the hallway. What do you think happens to him if you don't go up and calm him down? And because I'd have a catcher come out and tell me like, "Hey, make the pitch." Okay. Yeah. And the guy's going to ground out to shortstop. That's what McCann did for me. You know, I was overwhelmed by the big leagues, but he came out and he said, "Look, if you throw a fastball down the way here, this guy's going to try to pull it. You're going to get a ground ball to shortstop." and I was feeling all those feelings, you know, your buddy was feeling. It's like overwhelmed by it, trying to do too much. The bright lights are getting to you. And then you've realized just that one moment of leadership changed the whole trajectory of my career. So, I mean, it's teammates too, and leadership. Yeah. And we talk about that all the time, but I was real curious if it was the same for you. Like you could have the all-star cast and all this, and maybe the directors just got a bad vibe or whatever it is, you know, I mean, the chemistry really matters.
Yeah, it does. And sometimes you can overcome those,
right?
Whether it's a director or producer or whatever, you can overcome it with those other elements.
Strong group.
Right. You know, with House of Cards, for instance, you'd have directors come in. Sometimes they just come in and direct one episode out of all the seasons, one episode. And they don't want to come in and play House of Cards. They want to come in and put their own little stamp on it.
You guys are like, "No, we got our thing. We're doing."
They're like, "This show looks like the way it looks for a reason."
Right.
Yeah.
We don't have a steady cam. There's no roaming shots. This is, you lock it off, you paint the picture, and you act in that box, you know. But you have the camera crew, you've got your fellow actors, you've got the other people to sort of help pull you back down to where you should be. And that I love that story about McCann, because not only is he one of my all-time favorite Atlanta Braves, but just to hear that, him coming out saying that to you and hearing you say, it changed the whole trajectory of my career. I mean,
he did that for tons of guys. He did it for a lot of guys. Yeah. So that stuff's cool. I'm always interested, you know, what kind of parallels there are in, you know, other careers, because a lot of people discount that in baseball. They don't want to believe in chemistry or leadership. And they just think, you know, this guy gets called up, he's going to put up his numbers no matter what environment you throw him in. But having been through it, I know how much of a difference it was for me coming from Seattle, which was a tougher atmosphere on young guys, going to Atlanta, which was, you had Chipper Jones patting you on the back after a rough game. You know, like, what's that do for your confidence? You know, you got Bobby Cox leading you. So like, to throw me into that environment, you know, I take my whole career and I'm like, I'm so blessed to have gone to that exact environment at that time. Yeah. You know, what a difference it makes.
Sure. That's so cool, man. And you saw it. Like, that's what we were talking about earlier, like with this team. You saw that this year. You saw, I love what you guys were talking about last, it was either this one or one before, when you were talking about Snicker, and he was sort of going against those numbers. And he just managed from his gut, from his heart, from his life of baseball.
Yep.
And
That's how it makes the World Series.
outmanaged Dave Roberts in the NLCS.
He did.
And it worked.
Outmanaged Dusty in the World Series. Outmanaged Craig Counsell, who's a great manager in the NLDS.
Yep.
Yeah. He didn't go with analytics at every turn and pulling a guy. Sometimes he left the guy in too long. Sometimes, but he lives with that.
Yeah. And I do. There is a place for analytics in baseball, without a doubt.
Absolutely,
for sure.
But then there's also, look, guys are figuring out the shift now. It's next year is going to be different with the shift. Because they're like, all right, fine. Freddie Freeman, perfect example. Right? He's like, 2 strikes, I'm gonna slap it over. Good luck defending this,
And you saw a lot of guys more willing to do that in the postseason. I think they try to put up their numbers in the season, but when it was crunch time, Bellinger slapped the ball to left field. You saw a lot more guys willing to do that. So it's definitely cat and mouse.
I think we're going to have some guys work a little bit more on bat control now that the shifts have become so predominant with every team.
Yeah.
I think guys will just say, as much as I don't want to change my swing, at least with 2 strikes or whatever, you're going to see some guys that focus a little bit more on bat control, because it's just they're giving you the whole side of the field, the left side of the field.
Well, I've also just why are more people not just being like, fine, I'll drop a bunt down. Like a bunt's
it's hard. It's hard when guys are
hard.
The stuff that when guys are throwing 98.
Yeah.
Got it.
98 sink, 101. Or the Dodgers, 102 sinkers?
Right? Jesus Christ,
and
man.
Sliders, 90.
Go ahead, try to bunt. I couldn't bunt 50.
With movement. It's guys are throwing 100 with movement. It's not like it used to be,
Right.
It just used to be a lot easier to bunt. And they used to work on bunting a lot more.
We would bunt every spring training, and they put it on a machine and it's in the same spot every time, about 70 miles an hour. And you're sitting there and it's like, it's not that hard to put them down. We had a coach throw to us one day and he's just spraying it all over the place. I would get, if I bunted 10 balls in spring training, make all the pitchers bunt, I would get 9 out of 10 down, respectively. Once he started, his arm slot was everywhere. He's just launching it up and in, down and away. And he's throwing, broken coach. So he's throwing 45, 50 miles an hour. It's not hard. And he's just throwing it everywhere. I couldn't bunt all of a sudden. So, I'm in the same boat as you, where I'm like, why don't guys take more advantage of it? But I never want to lose, the feel for how tough it would be after bunting off a coach and struggling at 50 miles an hour, trying to bunt 98 and you don't know where it's going to be. But I do think there needs to be adjustment, with hitters in the game, just being more willing to take those singles. And
I got to work on all that, because I talked to Wash like in the middle of the season when the Braves were still under 500. It was one day he was pissed about how things were going at one point. And he was talking about the state of the game in general. And he hates how nobody can bunt anymore because nobody works on it. You work on it in spring training. Then you don't work on it hardly at all once his season starts. Right. So then you can't just ask a guy in the 8th inning of a game 4 months into the season, okay, lay down a bunt, which you haven't worked on since spring training. Right. So he wants to get back to a lot more fundamentals like that being used in the game. That's good, because I feel like, next year my gut says they're going to start with the shift, and I think it'll still be implemented, but I feel like it really played out in all the series there at the end, where you were just like, they're onto it, man. They can beat the ship by going, they can do it, and people are getting better at it. So it'll take a little while next season, but I feel like people are gonna. I don't know. That's just my gut. You're talking about that chemistry in the cast and large cast, and I'm thinking of The Sopranos, for instance. They have the same guys year after year, and girls, women. Yep. And the cast was so good and familiar to everybody, and it seemed like it just blended, like a great team blends. Yeah, and the same director, I think, for the. Well, David Chase wrote the right. You had different directors, but David Chase was the like Fincher did our first his vision, and then he oversaw it from afar. Yeah. Chase stayed on that thing, like that was it. It's funny when you see a show like it's so good, and then it starts a new season, and you're like, this isn't as good this year, and then you find out they changed the showrunner, and I used not to even know what that was. What is that? And now I'm like, the showrunner runs the show, right? Yeah. I mean, and a lot of times they're a director, but a lot of times they are just overseeing the hiring of every single aspect of it, from directors. Okay. Right. So the whole vision of the show can change, even though the cast is the same and everything. Yeah. House of Cards definitely changed their showrunners. Boy, it changed a lot over the years. It was always Bo Willimon was the guy,
But as far as like, you had Fincher for the first two that oversaw everything, and then Bo sort of took it from there.
Right.
And Fincher took a step back as executive producer, and just would weigh in if needed. But
Your
it was
character,
like,
dude, got
oh.
so intense in that show, man. When you looked at the scripts when a new season, did you like, really? I'm doing this?
If you asked me script, I'd be like, okay, A, killer, I'm not dead. I'm grateful. I get to keep going with my job.
Yeah.
Because they kill people on that show. I was just like, I'm dead.
Oh, you almost got killed.
Do you always have to worry about that? Like, is that because
Always.
you're always worried in baseball about having that one bad, 2-3 game stint that just gets you sent down to the minors, or you get traded or DFA'd. Are you like that as an actor where you're like, I don't know if I nailed these last few episodes. I might die soon. I might get
100%.
shot.
You could even be nailing the episodes and you're just like, they kill people. It's better for ratings when they kill people.
Yeah.
So,
I thought you were dead that one time, man.
Oh yeah, when she took me in the woods,
Yeah, I thought he was dead.
Now, will they hang that over you? Like, say you get shot a bunch and they'll be like, if you don't take this much, you're not going to get resuscitated.
Well, there is stories from Sopranos, and actors that would go and be like, hey man, I'm fan favorite. I need to be paid more money. And they're like, no, you need to be killed. And they just fucking kill them off.
That's great.
Man, that's great.
No,
you're dead then, buddy.
So when she hit me over the head with a rock at the end of season 2, I think that was, and left me for dead in the woods. And that was the end of that's how it ended for that character.
I thought you were gone.
You saw him laying there and you're like, he's dead. He was laying there the next morning. It happened at night.
Yeah.
Like, he's dead.
He's still alive.
And the writer said to me, Bo Willimon, he was like, dude, you're going to be back. Don't worry. But I didn't have
meaner than ever.
I didn't have a contract. I didn't have a contract yet. So I was like, yeah, but like, when are we going to talk about that? And it was 3 months before we started shooting, maybe.
Wow.
And I was like, come on, man. And he's like, don't worry. We're working it all out, but I think it's going to. And then finally I got the call and I was like, damn. But because they can change their mind, man, and you're dead. That's it.
They could have easily written you out of that. Yeah. Yeah. The way that ended.
So that's like trying to make the team at the end of spring training. You're waiting for that call to the manager's office. They call you in and it's like, what are they going to say?
So that's it, right? The end of spring training, they bring you in, or before the end, they bring you in and you either get the nod that you're going to stay on, or that's it, you're going down.
Yeah, I'd like, oh, you died, buddy.
You died.
You didn't make it.
Oh, it's gotta suck.
As long as they didn't kill off Robin Wright's character, I was good, man. I could have watched that 20 more seasons.
Jeez, I tell you, man, she is, like, her talent insane, her beauty insane.
Yes, yes, and yes.
Yeah, definitely the latter. She is also one of the smartest. Like, she directed more episodes of House of Cards than any other director.
Wow.
She never directed when we started, and by the end, she had directed more of them than anybody else.
Dude, really, to have been a fly on the wall during the years that Robin Wright was married to Sean Penn, that had to be some intensity in that household.
I can't even imagine, man. Because she is a very, very strong woman. Like, yeah, I wouldn't.
And he is a very intense dude.
And he is just out of his head. I love him. Great actor.
Yeah.
But the story you hear, I mean, funny enough, I never heard anything about, she's kind of private. Like, she wouldn't talk about her life, especially not her past life like that.
Man.
But great.
Does that suck that you're talking about, because when the show comes back, you get paid? It's got to suck that when Kevin Spacey did what he did, I mean, your show's not shown anymore. I don't know if it's going to come back at any point, but it's like it got canceled by culture, basically.
Well, that was funny enough. It was going to be the last season anyway. But where we got robbed as people who had dedicated our lives to that show for 6 years was that, we were set to shoot our final 13. We had shot the first 2 with him. We were in production. They shut it down. And then it was like a month or 2 of like, what's going to happen? I called Robin and I voiced our concern that we thought we should finish it for the fan base. That was Netflix's first original programming show. I was like, you can't just leave it like that because of what happened. We have to figure out a way to finish it. The unfortunate thing was that they did it with like a quarter of the months that they typically would take to write a season.
Right.
And so they had to rewrite the entire season basically in 2 or 3 months without your lead actor.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was just,
Yeah.
we were doomed on that last season. It was,
Yeah. Yeah.
they had to do it. They had to go ahead and start production in 2 months because you already had the crew. You had to keep that crew together. So you had to pay them.
Yeah.
No, they weren't working. So they held everybody and the actors, you didn't own the actors after it. So they were like, okay, we're just going to keep us on hiatus for a couple months. We're going to pick it back up and we'll keep everybody's contracts the same. And they were able to do that. So that's how we were able to finish it.
Limp to the finish line.
Yeah, exactly. Which is unfortunate because it was such a
great show for so long.
great show.
I love the dude that had the barbecue restaurant, man. I love the restaurant. It seems so real.
Rest in peace, man. One of the greatest guys
Great
that I
character.
ever worked with, man. And he passed away a couple years ago. One of the just good man, Reggie.
Yeah. There were some great
Lost.
characters, some great actors on that show.
Yeah.
Hey, the other guy I wanted to ask you about, I know we're out of time here. Another guy I want to ask, Tom Hardy, because I asked you earlier, you didn't answer. Is Jack Ryan coming back? Is that done?
Yeah. We just wrapped last month, season 3.
Awesome.
And we're going back this month to season 4. So
That's great.
We never do that. You normally get a year off, but we went ahead and just shot 2 seasons pretty much back to back. So for a calendar year, I'll be working, and I'm so excited, man. It's the best. I'm flying in Black Hawk, shooting guns. It's fun.
It's cool. Eric, have you watched?
Cool.
Have you seen that Jack Ryan? Eric?
No, I like
Oh,
to
it's
wait until
fun,
there's
dude.
4 or 5 seasons out and then just binge it.
And the other one I wanted to ask you about, Tom Hardy, dude.
Amazing. Like
That guy is off the charts.
he
He's
is-
such a great actor.
I think he's one of the most talented dudes that age right now. Like you can't look at him in Peaky Blinders. You look at what he did in Taboo.
Oh
you look
God,
at
Peaky
movies, like,
Blinders.
Peaky Blinders is probably my favorite show ever.
Oh, agreed. I keep waiting for it to come back. I have to wait so long between seasons.
It's just so fucking good, man.
I love it.
So good.
I love it.
But
Peaky
Tom
Blinders, I love it.
Tom's one of the coolest dudes that I've ever
Really?
worked
That's
with.
cool.
And
That's good to know.
I had heard going into it, they were like, "Hey, man, just so you know, my agent was like, I've heard. I don't know anything for sure, but I've heard Tom Hardy can be really tough." And I was like, "All right." And I went and we were 2 weeks in, and the two of us just laughing our asses off on set one day, and the script supervisor was like, "Did you guys go to university together, or was it just?" And I was like, "Well, we just met, man. It was 2 weeks ago." And
That's cool.
That's
Where'd you film Taboo? Where was Taboo filmed?
in the UK.
That's what I thought.
We were
He
in
lives
London.
over there, right?
Yeah. Not far from where he lives. We shot that, and that was
God, he's amazing in that show.
so good. And that girl Una Chaplin, who's actually Charlie Chaplin's granddaughter.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the girl who played his sister.
Yeah.
She is nothing like that in real life. She's like this
Really?
hippie peacenik, goes to all over the world, like making beads and rugs and shit.
Yeah.
She's way
Wow.
out there, and I love her to death. But because she was also in the Comey Rule with me.
I love that. That was really good, dude.
Yeah, that was
I
cool.
like the Comey Rule. Everybody in the Comey Rule is really good.
Yeah, that was fun. To
But-
do that one.
Tom Hardy shared 2 characters in Taboo and Peaky Blinders. I mean, those 2 of the most intense characters that it's like just nonstop intensity.
Yeah, and
He's just so good.
and miles apart. Like
Yeah.
those characters couldn't be any more.
Yeah.
different. That's
God,
the talent.
he's so menacing in Peaky Blinders.
Oh.
Oh man. Well, both of them is. He's
Yeah.
just the
Yeah.
baddest ass dude alive.
yeah.
His one-on-ones with the lead dude in Peaky Blinders.
Oh,
The
it's
one-on-one scenes with those 2. God, the dialogue was just I love
epic.
it.
It's
Yeah.
that's in the same writer, right? That did Taboo, does Peaky Blinders, Stephen Knight.
Yeah. Great shit. Yeah,
Yeah.
you've worked with some serious actors.
So grateful, man. I'm just so grateful. Like
How tough was it to
How
fit
often are
movie roles in when you were doing those? Because you did so many series with recurring roles. How hard was it to film movies in that schedule?
Oh,
It's funny that House of Cards kind of gave me that. House of Cards, we 6 months on, 6 months off, and
Okay.
the sort of for whatever you want to call street cred or whatever the House of Cards gave me. I had a movie or a limited series, like I did Everest one off season, I did Taboo another off season, I just every off season I did something cool. So that schedule of being on a series, actually, not Jack Ryan, because that schedule was crazy, but this being on a regular series like House of Cards, it lends itself to, you're going to be off these 6 months. So it made it really easy.
I wanted to ask you how often, because in baseball, when you get somebody gets traded or something, nobody ever wants to know, does Pujols really have the bat speed everybody talks about? He's great at baseball.
Right.
The first thing everybody wants to know is he cool? So when you're going to work with somebody that, you've admired for a long time or is pretty big in the business, how often are you shocked by their personality, and how random is it that some people are humble or too big for what they're doing? We call it getting big leagued. Some guys walk around and, they just walk around and just big league the shit out of everyone in the clubhouse, and other guys are super cool.
Yeah, I think
other guys are the boys, right?
The boys, that's what we call them. Yeah.
For as many reasons and whatever that you hear that, oh my God, I heard that actor's a monster, like Tom Hardy, right?
Yeah.
Most of the time, I am shocked by how humble and kind and sharing and giving, especially someone older than myself, like Jeff Daniels, just working with him on the Comey Rule. That dude, they'd say cut.
He's great.
We'd go in a room, he'd pick up his guitar and he'd just be picking away.
Wow.
And just talk. You could ask him anything about acting. You could ask him anything about life, anything about how and what you did to get here, and what was your road up like. Like that dude, it was just endless open book to everybody, not just me, but to everybody.
That's awesome.
You love to see it, man. And it sucks when you don't have somebody who's like that, who's like they say cut and they just go back to their trailer, and then they're like we're ready for you. Then you wait 30 minutes for them to come out of their trailer. Like
yeah.
Me personally, I'm gonna be cool to everybody, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, I don't have time for that shit. I'm here,
Yeah.
I'm getting paid less than you.
Be
cool,
a pro.
man.
Yeah.
Be cool. Like, but I will say that they're few and far between. Those people.
That's cool.
Have you seen, by the way, Jeff Daniels, his part in that show, American Rust?
I haven't seen that yet.
Damn good show, man. And it's a character. I've never seen him play before. He's this broken down sheriff, addicted to pills, coming back, and he's big. He's kind of not heavy set, but he's big.
Love him.
Yeah. And it's intense, man. The show is the woman that played the lead in The Affair on Showtime, because it's also on Showtime.
Oh yeah.
She's his love interest in it. Really good. It's a good show. It's like a limited series, like 6-7 episodes.
Yeah. I want to see that. I'll watch anything that guy does, man.
He's great in it.
He's amazing.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but another one of these guys that's got one of those reputations. What's Russell Crowe like? Because you worked with him, right?
I did, but it was very brief, so I didn't really get to know him. I've heard insane stories about Russell. Stories about Russell. He also has a damn good time, from what I understand.
Big personality, isn't he?
Big personality, strong personality, and you could feel that. Like you could feel when the dude walked by, and no matter if he said hey or whatever, sometimes you just feel that energy from those people. I'm sure it's the same way in baseball. You feel that personality. Walk into a room, you're like, that's strong, and that person has to own the room. Like, so you give it or you don't, and then you're gonna fight. And so it's just like I'm always just like, all right, you want to be the big dog in the room, you be the big dog in the room.
Yeah.
I think he's probably the big dog. The big dog in any room he's in.
Yes.
Yeah.
For better or worse.
Cool.
And just another one. I noticed one of your first movies was, and I forgot you were in this too, Man on the Moon. It was so long ago.
Oh, yeah. Jim Carrey, man.
Yeah, Jim Carrey. You were Andy Kaufman's brother. Was that?
Yeah, I played his brother in it, and I met his brother, the guy who I played. He was working at some office building right in Midtown.
Wow.
Like, of course you can come talk to me, because I like to try to, talk to, if it's a person who's still alive, I'd love to try to talk to him. So Andy McCabe, I always try to do it. But he he was very giving and everything, but Jim Carrey, one of the greatest, man. Like just
Really?
That's
cool.
We had that scene in Carnegie Hall. Remember when he pretends to have a heart attack, or he pretends that someone in the audience has a heart attack. He's like, "Is there a doctor in the audience?" And I come up with his brother. And it was a scene at Carnegie Hall. We filmed in Carnegie Hall, which was amazing in and of itself. Back in the day when I used to smoke and he was a smoker, and they would say cut, and sometimes we'd go out back and just out in the alley there and have a cigarette. And sometimes, so the first 10 rows of people you see in the audience were all paid extras. Everybody else behind that, they were like, "Do you want to come watch a Jim Carrey movie get made? We'll give you a sack lunch." That's all they got. So Jim knew that, and he came out and did stand up. He did songs. He did impressions. Like because he knew those people weren't getting paid, and he was like, "I'm gonna go entertain for a little bit."
Hook 'em up.
That's cool.
I mean, it was so cool, man. I was like, I feel really fortunate that was early in my career, because it's another one of those things that you learn from a veteran.
Yeah.
That you can then pass on to the next generation that's coming up. I don't know that I'll ever get a chance to perform to a bunch of extras in Carnegie Hall, but that ability to give knowledge, to pass it on for the next kid,
Man, that movie, you had Paul Giamatti, Danny DeVito, and one of the funniest guys that I've ever seen live, Pat Oswalt.
Oh, I love Pat, man.
He is so fucking funny, man. God, he's funny. Dude. His stand-up act, I saw it in DC at the Kennedy Center, and I was howling. It was so funny.
Great man, just a great man. Really good.
He's a pretty good actor too, isn't he?
Oh yeah. He's awesome, man. Like,
what's he, about 5'5"?
Yeah, he's not my height.
And DeVito's about 5'2".
So cool though, man. I'll never forget that. That was one of my first movies, man. I walked on the set, and there was DeVito and Courtney Love and Milos Forman directing, and
I was going to mention Courtney Love was in it, for God's sakes.
Oh my God. And I told you I did the research, right? And I talked to his brother, and I was like, "Who did you sit with at the funeral?" Each scene I went through it. I was like, "What were you doing in this moment? Who were you with?" So the funeral, it didn't have me sitting wherever. So I was like, "Who were you sitting with?" And he's like, "Oh my God, I actually was with," I forget his wife's name. But he's like, "I held her hand through the whole thing. I comforted her." And that was Courtney Love's character. This is my first day. And I've just met DeVito and all these other people. I'm sitting there. So I reach over and I hold her hand during one of the takes, and I comfort her during another. And I feel her like kind of, pulling away from me. And I was like, and so I reached for her hand again, and she pulled it away. And I was like, "Hey, I just, I talked to Michael, and this is what he said. I was just doing what I was." And she's like, "Yeah." She's like, "Hair, makeup. Can I get my hair fixed?"
I can totally believe that, man.
No, man.
I can totally believe that.
I don't care what you think you're doing. That's not what's happening. And I was just, I was young. I was like, okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
Today I'd be like, go to the director and be like, "Hey man, I'm just letting you know, in real life, this is what really happened. You want me to do that?"
Right.
Like, "Yeah, of course, do that. That's great." She's like,
"I'm Courtney Love. I'm not real life."
Yeah.
It's like, I didn't read any books. I don't know.
Oh, that's funny, man. Because that one, I was really interested in that one because of I lived in Memphis for a while, and when I lived there, Jerry Lawler was the king of Memphis. He was the biggest athlete in Memphis, all-star wrestler.
Yep.
I mean, he did videos where he'd ride around on a speedboat in the lake with a crown on, the king of Memphis. And he fought like the Sheik and Tony Atlas, and the wrestling shows at the Mid-South Coliseum were like huge. Yeah. And the Saturday morning, just like Tony Schiavone did the stuff in Atlanta, the Saturday morning stuff in Memphis was like, we didn't miss the wrestling shows on Saturday morning. And Jerry Lawler was the man. Oh, wow. So when he did the stuff with Andy Kaufman, I'm like, what the hell's going on?
Man, Andy Kaufman, that whole man, Jim Carrey would come in whatever. If he was playing Andy Kaufman that day, he was Andy Kaufman all day. If he was playing,
I bet. God, that's awesome.
What's his name? Tony Clifton, who rub the stinky cheese on himself. He drove a convertible Cadillac. He stormed off set one day, and had his Cadillac parked right out. This is a big giant soundstage here. He had parked his car like where you're not supposed to. And he got in, he stormed off set as Tony Clark. I don't want anything to do with you, son of a bitches. Fuck this, I'm leaving. He gets in the car and literally backs up and then just keeps going like this, banging into the stage until he turns the car all the way around. And then he didn't come back.
Oh my God, that's awesome. He's so in
Like,
character with each of the 3 characters he played in that.
Yeah. And so when he was Andy Kaufman, he would show up and give out ice cream in an ice cream truck one day. Like he's just God love him, man. That's a talented dude.
What a
man.
perfect guy to play that part, because Andy Kaufman was one
Perfect.
out there dude, man.
So out there.
Yeah.
So brilliant.
Yeah. That's cool. Wow. All right. Well, I've kept you so long, man. We've had you on here for an hour and a half, and
That's all
great.
good, man.
I
I'm
could
so
talk-
proud of it.
I could talk about this shit forever. This is awesome. But
Yeah, man. And we can, we get the season going.
Yeah.
I'll come back on anytime you want. We can talk about,
appreciate it. I hope the audience was as interested in this stuff as Eric and I were. But
They're like, dude, I was listening to a Braves podcast. I don't know what the hell they were
We're talking about Courtney Love's hand.
I'm sorry. If I messed it up, you can just record it.
No,
No,
are you
this
kidding
is-
me?
this is great.
Nothing's
This is
happened
great.
yet. When Freddie signs, we'll do a Freddie show.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. I know it's going to happen.
Oh yeah, it's
It
happening.
has to happen.
All right.
Has to.
It should.
If it doesn't, I'm gonna
should.
eat. I'm gonna eat crow. If it doesn't.
I
Yeah,
am
you
too, 'cause
are.
I keep telling my son, I'm like, they have to. They won the World
Yeah, they
Series.
have to.
have the
Exactly.
money.
They
What's
had
it going to do to your
before.
son if he doesn't sign back?
I don't
Will he
know.
cry?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Because he knows he's going to go to one of my son does not like the money teams. Like he doesn't like the Yankees or the Dodgers. Yeah. He doesn't like the fact that teams can spend that much more than other teams. I
Yeah.
don't know why. Because I'm on the team that does.
Dude, you could. By the way, you could play the young Snicker in that movie.
I wanted to play
That'd
his
be cool.
coach.
Grow a mustache with that hat.
Yeah.
You're him, man.
I did him as Halloween one year, actually. I did the mustache.
You did Snit. That's awesome. Durham Bulls manager Brian Snicker.
All right, fellas.
All right, that's
Man,
it.
it's
Hey,
a pleasure, you guys. Thanks so much for
that's
having me.
awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for coming
Really.
on. That was great.
All right, 7:55 is real. We probably won't have as good a guest for a while, but hey, we appreciate you guys. Give us good ratings. Check it.
All right.
Check you later. 7:55 is real. We're out.
Peace.
Dude,
Excellent work, gentlemen.
That was fantastic, man.
That was great.